Okay, I need to make a quick little tutorial for how to do teleporting doors that are completely native. It works entirely via paths, so we're just going to call one TP1 and the other path, or here we can do that, and then the other one TP2, like that, right? Next, we need some sort of object to stand on. This is the object that is going to actually teleport us. That's pretty good. Let's do one of those. And then you can manipulate this object. This will determine, the size of the teleporting zone, right? So you can make it that big, or you can make it that small, whatever, right? If you do manipulate the object, of course, just like because we're using path and we are using the path navigator script, so make sure you add an empty entity as the parent object. So this needs to be the child object of your new empty entity. This will prevent this from going back to its default size whenever it's actually on the Path Navigator tool. Because now, Path Navigator is going to be on the empty object, so we can call this, we'll call this TP1, so we can keep it organized. Then we need Path, not Converger, but Navigator, and then TP1. Very simple. And our speed, I will just increase this to like a 20. And there we go. We have an object on a path navigator going, and then when it reaches the end, it comes back here. So what happens... Okay. Oh, I have bots spawned. That's not good. Should have paid more attention. Okay, so you have this, right? And this is to show this also works in multiplayer. So this works both in multiplayer and single player. In multiplayer, you're going to notice some desyncing between the object in motion and your character. And it doesn't like... There we go. But you get the idea. We'll use those guys as reference. When we get to the end of this path, boom. We teleport with this object in motion back to the beginning of the path. That is the most important part. So don't worry about this like visual desync, because that doesn't matter for the teleports. What matters is the actual physics object. So if we come back here, let's do this, right? Yes, TP1, make a new one. TP2, TP2, and what we need to do next is, obviously we don't want to see this, and this is the reason why it doesn't matter whether the physics of the object is desyncing from the visual, because we are removing the visual of the object. So we are taking the material texture, replacing it with Editor Gizmo. Editor Gizmo is really good because it has everything you need and it won't crash. Now you have two invisible objects, but they're still moving, and in multiplayer, that's all that matters. So now, let's say we improve this design though, because what we have kind of carries you. You don't want that, obviously. So for the teleporting doors, what you need are actually at least 4 points. You want 1 point like that. Then let's go ahead and add there, and 1 point like that. Now, if I can just line that up roughly. Now, we take this, drop the whole thing, or, you just make it like that to begin with. And we have, boom. So what's happening here? Let's say you're on this side, and let's take an atom. So what's happening, can't find it, there it is. What's happening is it's going underground, coming up, and when it comes up, it picks up the player, right? And then you teleport here. Now, you don't have to do it like this. I did it like this because I prefer to line it up just under whatever ground or object you are, your designation is. So let's say we're in a situation where you want a door and you want to teleport over here, right? I don't need to do that. Right, so we have a door, they're teleporting, blah, 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 right? And then I'm also, didn't mention this, I'm also going to increase the speed of this path navigator. Now you can't go too fast, otherwise what happens is that the server can't keep up. But you can go with like a 50. 50's, you can go with a 50. Okay. Wherever door is right. So now, whatever teleporter. Boom. Show you again. Oh, server does not like whatever is happening with the bots. Probably because there's no nav mesh. Boom. Done. Immediately. It is very rapid because I set it to 50 speed. You can lower that speed a bit, especially if you have a lot going on the map. I would recommend if you have a longer distance and you don't want to decrease the speed anyways and do multiple at like slightly different speeds so they don't overlap. Done. That's how it works. There's a slight delay. You can account for that delay by adding a small hallway right before the door, and that hallway, like the area of that hallway can be the exact size and dimensions of your teleporting platform. So boom, and then as long as you have an identical hallway on the other side, players will never know. They'll just be like, huh, the door disappeared and now I'm over here. So it can be pretty seamless. You see that little jump. Sometimes you see that little jump, sometimes you don't. You do want to make sure, let me leave, that here I have it really high. You don't actually need it this high. You do need it about player height though, just to account for any weirdness in game physics. So roughly player height over, and you're set. Most of it going underground or through an area that players can't pass, because this is still a physics object. So what'll happen is, like, if it's just going through the air, it's going to hit someone. So you have to go, it has to be going along a path where it won't interact with players. And then again, here on this side, reason we have it just underneath is because your player will clip and pop back up into the correct spot when it's clipping. And that's true for if you have like a platform or something, right? If I have like this cave platform, or let's use this because that's a little easier, and it's like way up here, what you would do, make sure, and we can use an atom to be very clear, player will just pop up underneath as is. We need it to pop up like, say, there, right? Because it's through the legs and your character will go straight up. And it can't go over, obviously, otherwise when you get to the other side, you're just dropping, you're being carried. It's a little annoying, so you want it just underneath whatever objects that your player's standing on, whether that be an actual object or the ground. And now you have a, in this case, a one-way teleporter. So next question is obviously, how do we make it two ways? Well, that is what TP2 is for. TP2 is, if you remember, almost the exact same as TP1. And let me just delete that actually. But going in the opposite direction. So here we go like that. We want to land not in the same spot. What's the issue if you place it like this? Or here, let me add the points first before we continue. Boom. What's the issue if we place it like this? You're going to teleport to one side, immediately get picked up and teleport to the other side. Obviously, you can't have that. So the side that you're teleporting from needs to be closer to the door. So you can see that side like this. So we're going to teleport here. We're going to teleport to here, just past the door. And when you're doing this, obviously you need to take into account the size of your teleporting platform. You can't have, because it's following the path, but it's centered on the path because of the way we place the empty object. So I actually need to move. This is actually probably just perfect, but I'm going to move it a little farther just in case. And we're set. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to use teleporting platforms as large as this, obviously. If you're doing a hallway, you might as well, so you can move more players at once. But you can use like one that's not quite as wide, and you can push them a little closer and make it a little more seamless. So you have that side, and then this side, obviously, can't tell which one's which. Okay, this side, we're gonna pick up, right? And since we're picking up this close on this side, we're gonna drop off like that. And there we go. That is a teleporter. And then I will show you how it works as soon as I increase the speed on the other one. Let's say also 50. That's how it's going. Teleport, 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 teleport. Teleporting. Let's see, that'll go up. That's actually quite wide. I need to pull this a little farther. I did make these a little wider than they needed to be, but whatever. And let's say you have a hallway, so let's do a little wall on either side. And then at this point, your teleporting platform obviously should be like sized correctly, so you don't want someone to be on the other side of the wall getting teleported, obviously. So you would just resize your teleporting platform. That's just your stone floor, remember, with your editor gizmo. And pay attention to the direction that the path navigator is going. It is the opposite direction that your teleporter goes. So your path is moving to the right. That means you're teleporting to the left. So we're here, right? Take our teleporter. Boom. That's it. We're through. We're on the other side. Check it again. Boom. Other side. That is how you do a teleporter in native. And this was a very quick one. You can make them a lot more seamless than this, especially if you have like a long hallway or something. So let's take the Kalovea castle that I built, right? This should one day be used for Colorado campaign, but when I was doing it, I realized, oh, that is way too long a distance to run up just to get to this first flag. That's ridiculous. So I did end up having to do a teleporter. You can see I put a little barrier so players could get in but not out. And this is a one-way teleporter. It can be done one way for, like, you've seen that. Then it goes here, goes under, goes all the way up here. And then you're in a little sewer, an identical sewer to this one. So you're just like going, going, going. By the time you turn the corner, though, even on horseback, I've tested this, it's fine. And then you're up here. And the player's confused, but they think it's cool. And it feels natural because you're going through, if you think about it, something very similar to the concept of like old loading screens, like, but not actual loading screens, like your character's stuck in an elevator for a really long time, if you remember older games like that. In this case, it's already loaded, we're just teleporting. But we still need this transition piece to make it very seamless and appropriate for, in this case, Calradic campaign. For other kinds of maps, some more like gamified maps, for just something a little more wonky, that wouldn't matter. And here I also did an extra little teleporter. Any player that gets on this will end up teleporting up here. But this is a long distance, so 3 teleporters. And all 3 of these teleporters, you can see they're moving at different speeds, because you can't have them going too fast. If they're going too fast, the server can't keep up, and like your character will kind of get picked up, but not really, and it doesn't work properly. So instead, what we do is we take multiple, we give them 3 of them, so in this case 31, 41, 23. Now these teleporters will very rarely intersect, and generally have pretty good spacing, and more importantly have pretty good timing. So there's never a moment where you go too far and you're waiting on this side for the teleporter to work, unless if a bug happens, but you know, Bannerlord. Another example is here. You can see another teleporter. You can see the paths, right? So I had this like inner chamber. Let me just show from this side. Like you go in, there's other ways in, but one of the ways is there's a little ladder, and you have this in inner chamber, right? And I wanted a way for players on the top of the map, because it's very far, and people on the inner chamber to be able to interact. So I built another teleporter. And again, this is a more gamey version, so I put a big arrow to make it very obvious, hey, there's a teleporter here, because, you know, looking at it, it's not very obvious. This is what I meant, though, that you can actually fit it in quite a tight space. We put 120 players on this map, and 120 is probably too many players fighting around here, because 60 players going through a teleporter. They gathered up at the doorway, right? They went through, and then they were fighting, surrounded, and it was actually quite amazing to see. But probably okay up to like 40 to 60 players, probably half that number, because what was happening, too many players, they were actually getting pushed back and then teleported back down. And this is a slower teleporter, so I didn't have to raise the height very much. I probably would now, knowing how they work a little better. This is very early on when I was making them. Here, this is Soru Sons of Rurik's training map that we use. So I made a hub up here where we all spawn, and, you know, as you can see, all of these lines are teleporters that bring the players and teleport the players to and from wherever the respective positions are. Now, this is again a more gamey version, so you don't have to put, in this situation, the teleporter like destination in the same as the exit. People understand on this map, big door mean you stand in front of and it'll teleport you. If you're on the ground, it'll teleport you to the hub, and from the hub you can teleport anywhere on the map. Just another example of them in action. And again, same deal. The teleporters actually don't go right next to the door, because again, more gamey version, it doesn't matter in this situation. Just below, they pop up right here, right in the middle, right in front of all these doors, and they can choose wherever it is they plan to go. That took a lot longer than I expected. I'm gonna have to cut that down, hopefully to like 5 or 6 minutes. Bye.